Let's talk about the prospect of a social media ban. Backbench rebellion, actually, well, from Tory Lords in the House of Lords last night, the government's Children's and Schools Bill has actually, well, could actually force Keir Starmer's hand on a ban on social media for under 16s. They voted to allow that. MPs are going to get another chance of voting on it. Looks like there's a majority across the House for that ban to come into place, even though the government's only just announced a consultation in it following the Australian ban that began a month or so ago. Well, let's talk about this with Professor Tony Breslin. He's author of Lessons from Lockdown, and he's also a school and college governor. Very good morning to you, Tony.
Good morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We've just been speaking to Kemi Badenoch on the show live, and she was saying, you know, this looks something that she's very much in favour of. She's got 3 children under 16 herself. Very strict rules in her home about what they can access, and she thinks that we need to bring this social media ban in for under 16s. Do you agree with her?
I'm not sure. I remain to be convinced. What I do think we need is much stronger regulation. We've got a kind of 3 critical things here. We've got a real crisis of parenting in a digital age, how we do it. I struggle with that as a parent. Secondly, we've got tech companies that are frankly out of control and are setting all the rules. And thirdly, we've got this fantastic technology that allows us to connect and engage and research and understand in ways we never have before. I'm not convinced that some kind of blanket ban is the right move, and I'm always worried about law made on the back of moral panic.
Yes.
Let's research it and do the right thing, which might be a ban, but let's make sure we're getting it right.
And this is the thing. Everyone was saying, well, we'll wait and see what happens in Australia. No, will youngsters get round it? Are there issues, as I raised with Kemi Badenoch, about, well, if you can identify that someone is a child, then by definition you have to identify that someone's an adult. Well, how would you do that unless they give their ID? And we've already had a big backlash to that over the issue of, accessing sort of adult services like pornography, people getting, and particularly youngsters, free VPNs. They're available for free, as well as the rather more, there's more other ones which you pay for, which perhaps give you a bit more protection. But youngsters have a way of getting around this stuff. They understand this stuff way more than most parents do. And we could just end up, again, this sort of creeping idea of safety for kids ends up being effectively controls on adults.
I think also it risks ignoring the multiple benefits that we can get from having the world at our fingertips. But we have to be aware of the costs as well. The costs that when a family goes out to dinner now, if they're lucky enough to be able to afford to do that, they sit in a restaurant and they're all on their phone.
Oh, it's utterly miserable. Genuinely, Jake Wallace-Simon's in the studio with me. We were just discussing that in the break. Yeah. It breaks my heart whenever I see that, because this is it. I think, schools that allow kids to have their phones in the classroom, if you get your phone out of the classroom, if you're not suspended for a week, your school is not doing their job properly. But the real problem is, again, I agree with you, you've got the algorithms from the tech companies. They can absolutely change those algorithms, and they should be changing those algorithms for adults as well as kids, but even more so for kids. But it's fundamentally, a lot of it is down to parenting. The parents who say, well, what can I do? I mean, my kid just is on their phone all the time and they use it at dinner. And I'm like, do you even hear yourself?
Yeah, I do. And what's worrying is I hear myself when I hear you say that. We are all battling with it.
No, that's not true. I never battled with it. It was never an issue. It was never even up for discussion. Wasn't allowed.
Okay, right.
I'm sorry, I'm a 1950s parent. It works.
Not at all. I'm still working at being a 70s one. Look.
Oh, that's the worst kind of parenting. Don't do that.
And schools, for instance, most schools now are doing a really good job on this, and they're working really hard, and most of them have managed to square the circle between banning the inappropriate use of phones during school hours and particularly during lesson hours, and actually saying to students, now get your phones out, we're going to go onto this site here.
No, I don't think they should ever get their phones out. I really don't.
You see, I've got a wall of books behind me, Julia. The truth is I hardly ever go to them now. I loved going to them, but I click a couple of keys here and I've got all of that. Now, in terms of education, if we're educating children for a digital age, we've got to prepare them for that.
True.
If we create just a cliff edge, so say we did a complete ban and say it was effective and say every parent managed to, completely enforce it. Let's just imagine that.
Yeah.
they would get to 16 and they would fall off the cliff.
But
and
that's
not
the
know
same
how to
for.
handle it at all.
But that's the same as
That's
the same as at 16 you're allowed to have sex, and the day before you're 16 you're not. It's the same as you're allowed to legally, I mean, to have alcohol and cigarettes at the age of 18, but the day before you're not. All laws have. You're allowed to vote. You're not allowed to vote. These are cliff edge by definition.
I accept that. But actually what we try and do in education, and I work with about 50 schools a year, what we try and do is prepare young people for the cliff edges.
Yeah.
So actually we have to have, it should be a fantastic resource.
Yes.
That my kids are far more digitally able than I ever will be, right? It shouldn't be a threat. At the moment, to some degree it is. Look, I'm not against a ban. It may be the way we need to go, but we need to look at the evidence and we need to base our decisions on that. And I'm sure we can get this right, because frankly, we don't have a choice.
Yes, I think we're going to have to face up to something, as you're right. I mean, let's at least have a proper consultation and do some research, see what happens elsewhere. I want to ask you also, as someone who's involved with so many schools, these two stories today, I mean, again, heartbreaking. One in, children are starting school trying to swipe and tap books like phones because they've never had a book. I've read these stories before, where their kids start holding them upside down. They literally don't even know how to do it. They just no idea. But also, 1 in 4 kids that are starting school in reception classes, so they're 4 years old up to 5 years old, are still in nappies, according to a poll of teachers, because parents don't think toilet training is their job, but obviously think it's teachers' job. Both these stories just utterly baffle me. Well, what's going on?
My wife was a primary school head teacher for many years, and I was chair of governors at a primary school federation, and I'm a trustee of a primary school MAT at the moment. We do have some of this. It is a bigger issue. I'm always going to say that the answer is education. I'm going to back to my first point about we've got a real crisis in parenting here, and we need to address that. And we need to be really clear in the education system about what we expect of parents. I don't think we're always clear enough. And I don't think politicians are clear enough.
But I don't think the parents needed to be told to toilet train their kids and teach them how to sit on a chair and follow instruction when I went to school.
But I agree. But look, I think all these things are intertwined. There have been various issues around the struggles of the traditional family in the modern age.
Oh, it's lazy-ass parenting. Let's call it what it is. They'd rather be doing this than spending time talking to their kids, teaching their kids, reading to their kids.
Isn't it? That's the connection. And certainly, there was some research done some years ago now, about a decade ago, where the three of the largest universities got together and they discovered something that wasn't surprising to me at all. You might say it wasn't worth the money, but they actually were able to demonstrate that the biggest single impact on educational achievement, when you cut out class and ethnicity and disadvantage and everything else, was the presence of books in the home. Not even the reading of them, the physical presence of books in the home. Now, of course, in the digital age, everybody has one of these. I'm holding out. There we are. Everybody has one of those. Other brands are available. But do we get children enough to look with and interface with books enough? And how do we get books into homes and into parents?
But then the National Book Trust, I think they hand out books, but people say it's about poverty. Libraries offer free books. I mean, it's genuinely painful. Oh, Tony, we could talk about this for so much longer. I'll come back on the show again soon. Tony Breslin, Professor and School and College Governor. Loads more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, sorry for my language earlier, but I can't think of anything that makes me more angry than bad parenting. It's the root of everything that's. You want to know why people are on welfare? You want to know why the country's going to the dogs? You want to know about these cultural problems? This is education, and this is about parenting first and foremost. This is such a crucial issue for our country. I'd love to hear